Come on in.
Welcome back to Juice in the Morning. This is a NFL Sunday special for you guys. This is the last one we're doing for the month of November, but we are working on putting together a project for next year and possibly the years after that. But this week I have with me again is Pauly from Paulys Sleepers. How's it going, buddy?
Good morning, Paulys Sleepers fans. Hey, Juice, it's great, man. This is the last one here. We planned a 4-part series for November back in September, and it happened.
Yeah, I think we did a good job so far. This is a good dipping the toes in the water and figuring out how to do this thing with fantasy football. Because, like I said, I have some knowledge, but I feel like bringing you guys in is a lot better than just listening to me try to talk about fantasy football.
Well, you contribute really well.
A little bit, I guess. But also with us is Jackson Mears, and he is part of Paulys' team. So how's it going today, man?
Man, it's a great day. It's Sunday. We're getting ready for some football, so I'm super excited.
I love it. And you guys are getting ready to go to the game today, right? At the Indianapolis Colts-Tennessee game?
That is correct.
Yeah, I'm excited to see them play a division game. I think that they usually stand pretty strong against the Titans.
It should be a pretty pumped up game. Division game, and Colts have had a week to rest. Gathers is back, Brissett needed some time to get acclimated there. I mean, we signed him like 5 days before the season started. I mean, that's barely an exaggeration, really. So he's getting into it, man, and he could ball, he could run. Mm-hmm. Loving some Jack Doyle and hitting him up, so we'll see. Yeah.
All right, so let's just jump right in because a lot of the people listening might just be right away trying to get some lineups in for daily fantasy. So take it away, Pauly.
All right, we're going to give out some of our favorites, and then we'll do rapid fire at the end. So please stay tuned for the whole podcast, and we'll get it in time for you guys to get some lineups in before the game. So we're on Jared Goff this week, and we'll get into why we like these guys later. But I've been playing a lot of Jared Goff this year, and I'm going to pair him. This is lineup 1 with Tevin Coleman, Alvin Kamara, AK-41, Julio Jones, Kenny Stills, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Kroft, Duke Johnson, and the Falcons D. And then we're going to do another Goff with Christian McCaffrey, Todd Gurley. This is lineup number 2, Goff, CMC, Gurley, Kenny Stills, Robbie Anderson, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Kroft, Duke Johnson, and the Eagles D. And then we're going to do another Goff with Hunt, Kamara, Stills, Robbie Anderson, Cooper Kupp, Jack Doyle, Tariq Cohen, and the Eagles D.
Nice. So we're sticking with Goff, huh? Like, he's somebody that I feel like has kind of come out of nowhere this year, right? I mean, is it the run game, the defense, and everything like that kind of coming into play for him, or what?
It's everything put together. It's the greatest show on turf 2.0. It really is. I mean, they're averaging like 30 plus points a game. It's amazing. McVay has put something really special together there, and they definitely focused on defense in the draft, and their offensive line spent money to get some really proven offensive linemen. And there's teams that don't even start 5 guys that can even touch some of their backups. They've got a really deep line, and just a great game plan. And Goff can ball out, man. I mean, he's sometimes it takes time for, these guys to show their true potential. And we're just seeing it in Alex Smith, who's been around for a while.
For sure.
And, it's fantastic. They're doing great.
So Jackson focuses a lot on the cornerback wide receiver matchups for you. So what do you think about the Rams and their wide receiver core? Because I don't feel like there's any guy that I feel like is their big money guy. Like that's just like, I don't know, back in the day, like a DeAndre Hopkins or anything like that. They don't have anybody like that, I don't feel like.
Yeah, no one sticks out. I mean, if you look at him, you got Watkins, you got Robert Woods, and you got Cooper Kupp. I mean, nothing really blows the top off right there when you look at the line, but it's a well-run machine.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I mean, if you have 3 guys that can put up numbers, I mean, unfortunately, Woods is out this week. And he is a USC product, best university in the land. But I mean, Kupp's going to destroy this week. Watkins he's so up in the air. I mean, you look at how high when he got drafted by Buffalo, and it's like the potential when he came out was good, but he hasn't performed.
Yeah, he's been struggling. He's been struggling quite a bit. And I'm also just kind of looking through the game log for season long fantasy with Jared Goff, and it seems like the teams that he's struggled against are very strong defensive teams. So it looks like Seattle, Jacksonville, and Minnesota are the only weeks that he hasn't put up decent numbers. So that seems pretty pretty standard, right? I mean, Vikings, Jacksonville. Jacksonville has had a surprisingly good D this year, to me anyways. It might not be surprising to other people. But.
Jacksonville is so kind of backlog on a story during our work draft. Everyone was picking up Denver, Seattle early on. I was like, seriously?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick a good kicker, and then I'm going to come back with a defense. And I actually picked up Jacksonville in the last round. And
Nice.
I mean, they've
I'm in
paid
that
my way for
league.
my
Jackson
season.
drafted Jacksonville and played them all year, and wow, I mean that's a game changer right there.
Yeah, and they've been really killing
Saxonville.
it. Okay, so the main thing, or the second thing that I wanted to get into, did you get your lineups that you wanted to get in right away, or did you have more?
I definitely have time for more if you want to just hit some up real quick.
Yeah.
Let's do. We're going to do Brissett at home with Tariq Cohen, Mark Ingram, Julio Jones, Corey Davis, T.Y. Hilton, Tyler Croft, Robbie Anderson in the Eagles D, Tyrod Taylor with Kareem Hunt, Christian McCaffrey, Mohamed Sanu, Zay Jones, Robbie Anderson, George Kittle, Alvin Kamara in the Eagles D. Marcus Mariota is the next one with Duke Johnson, Todd Gurley, T.Y. Hilton, Robbie Anderson, Doug Baldwin, George Kittle, Larry Fitzgerald, and the Browns D. And one more, Cam Newton with Kareem Hunt, Christian McCaffrey, Julio Jones, Kenny Stills, Sammy Watkins, George Kittle, Duke Johnson, and the Eagles D.
So Kittle is a tight end.
George
Where
Kittle
was
and
he
Vince.
from?
Well, he was. I
haven't heard of that. If you haven't even heard that name.
He went to University of Iowa with Betherford, and he was his tight end. So they had the connection already. So he was hurt last week, and Garrett Selleck came in, and that was a great matchup that I told everybody to play, and he smashed, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. But anyway, Kittle's back from health, and just at the price point that I needed to hit to get some of these other big players, and that's the Paulys Sleepers concept.
Yeah.
And this week the sleepers are Croft and Cooper Kupp and Kenny Stills and Tariq Cohen, Corey Davis, Zay Jones, some really cheap guys that are in smash spots.
So this week, is there any weather affecting any of these teams, guys? Do you guys have anything? Because we talked about that last week.
Bears, Eagles, and I didn't have a chance to double check it this morning, but last night, I'm only concerned if winds are going to be in the 15 to 25 mile an hour range, 20 miles an hour and up. Not so much rain or snow. There's not really going to be rain or snow, maybe drizzles, maybe flurries.
Yeah.
But there's potential for up to 25 mile an hour winds in the Bears and Eagles game and in the New England and Miami game.
Okay.
And notice I don't say a lot of Tom Brady today.
Yeah.
I think him and Gronk are going to be in bubble wrap here really soon. They're both healthy. They want them healthy for the playoffs, and they're going to be asking them to do less and less.
Yeah.
We already saw it last week with Gronk, and Amendola smashed. I'm not playing him. I mean, that might be a huge mistake.
Yeah.
We played a bunch of him last week, but I just think there's value for cheaper with guys that have the same kind of shootout blow-up potential.
So just for more of a personal look at my year-long fantasy team, I had Matt Stafford and Golden Tate playing on the Thanksgiving game. So what I want to know from your guys' perspective, is Golden Tate going to come back for me during the playoffs? Because it seems like it's been more Marvin Jones as of late. So what do you guys think about that?
I think Tate will. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the trickiest position on defense is the slot corner.
Yeah.
And even like dissecting the wide receiver cornerback chart from Pro Football Focus that I do, the slot corners are the worst graded corners in the league. So when you get a shifty guy like Golden Tate, it just takes one play.
Yeah.
It takes one play for him to take it.
Right. And to take off on that, just to expound on that a little bit, Tate got moved back into the slot this year.
Yeah.
To go off of what Jackson was saying. But also Matt Stafford in the last 5 years is in the top 5 in the league for targeting that position. And that's also his natural position and where he thrives the most. So unfortunately, he does do a disappearing act on you, and having a guy like Marvin Jones on there, it might affect that. But I mean, he's had a couple bad weeks, but definitely he's somebody you'll be able to count on.
Yeah, because I have Stafford, and I have I have Stafford and Ben Roethlisberger, and I played Stafford over Roethlisberger, which I don't think was a good move this week. But I was looking at the projections. I was looking how well Matt has played on Thanksgiving Day, so I was just like,
and at home too. I mean, it was definitely on paper. You know, the football gods will come down and rain hell on you.
Yeah.
You know.
Plus, it does benefit when you don't have a running game. So
Yeah.
when you're throwing the ball 35, 40 times a game, I mean, it just takes one play for someone to break.
And this week was kind of like this was kind of I would say a look at how his year has gone almost all year for me playing him in a fantasy league because of the fact that, you know, he starts off really weak and then he scores a couple touchdowns at the end of the game, and you're like, your day is salvaged. So it's kind of it's really nerve wracking when you're watching the box score if you're not able to watch the game, and that's what was happening because I was at Thanksgiving Day dinner with my family, so I'm like sitting there watching the box score and seeing that he has like -2 points to start the game, and I'm like, what the fuck happened? Like, what is he doing? And then he picks it up at the end. But second person I wanted to talk about though is Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen is a player I picked up, like I drafted him thinking like, you know, I liked the way he looked last year. Fantastic. And he's been having insane numbers this year. Is it because he's going up against worse defense, or is it just because he's that guy?
Thielen plays most of his snaps out of the slot too. I mean, that's the biggest thing. But
I know my strategy next year. I'm going for the slot guy,
especially in PPR leagues. So it's PPR league, right?
Yeah.
Well, those guys are going to get, you know, more targets and more catches, and they're not touchdown dependent.
Yeah.
If you play, I mean, Thielen will have 8 for 90, and that's a great game. He doesn't have to score.
That's exactly what he had
to get you. Is it? Yeah. Okay.
8 for 89, but I'm going to give you
Are
that.
You
I'm going to give you that.
Well, thanks. No, I mean, you know, things that you want to look for when you're drafting a team, you know, and I mean, we are coming up on the end of the year, and the offseason is the best time to start planning your strategy. Mm-hmm. Is look for guys that got hot at the end of the previous year. Mm-hmm. And Thielen got really hot last year moving in. And got more acclimated to that offense. And Diggs isn't always there, and Diggs has that injury history, so sometimes he's relied upon to be the guy.
Yeah.
And he could be the guy. And I love the yellow gloves, man. Have you seen that?
I have.
I mean, he's just you just look back, and especially if they show that new camera from behind, and you just see those yellow gloves come out, and he catches everything. Yeah. My brother Eric, who plays along with us on this DraftKings and has been along with us, you know, on Paulys Sleepers since day one. He's a huge Vikings fan because in Indy there wasn't a franchise, you know, when he was growing up. So that's fair for him to be a Vikings fan.
Absolutely.
And Colts fans that throw shade on him are just, you know, we weren't always here. We had to like somebody else. But anyway, you know, he's really high on Thielen, and he's an elite guy now. Mm-hmm. He's proven it enough, and there's enough track record now for us to see that he's an elite wide receiver. He'll get drafted probably in the top 7 next year. So
do you think there is it's going to be consistent, or do you think he's going to be somebody that gets drafted early on next year and then?
Well, in the top 7, I mean by like one of the top 7 wide receivers.
Yeah.
I think it's consistent, but I mean, if you look at it, I mean, last year Stephon Diggs kind of broke out, but that was with Sam Bradford as quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then this year you have Case Keenum coming along, but that's with Thielen. So it's like, it's kind of crazy because then you in a system you have 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And you're waiting for Bridgewater to come back.
Yeah, and what's the deal there? Are they going to bring him back?
I think what they need to do now, going off of what Jackson was just saying, is since, you know, Keenum is balling out, and to think that he got benched for, God, I can't remember who he got benched for.
He was in LA last year and got benched for Goff.
Yeah. And back then, Goff wasn't getting it done. I mean, they, you know, at all.
No.
They've both emerged, but he's emerged in that offense. You know, they need to show us a little bit of Teddy B if they get into some blowout situations where there's garbage time to be had at the end, and increase his trade value and just trade him out. There's so many teams that need quarterbacks, and he's coming off injury, and Case is balling out. Trade him. So that would be the best thing for Thielen and for that team, I think. And next year, Dalvin Cook. If he comes back healthy, you know, Lat Murray and McKinnon have been getting it done, and they are a complete running back between the two of them. But Dalvin Cook is that running back combined. He can do all of those things.
Even if you look at that team, though, I mean, with Cook coming back, they have a young defense. They have 2 good running backs behind even Cook with him out, with McKinnon and Murray. And you have a decent wide receiver core, a decent tight end,
very good cornerbacks.
Like, they are primed to make a run for the next 5 years.
I'm excited to see that because, you know, the Vikings, I feel like when I was growing up watching football, weren't that great. They were always pretty terrible.
They are primed if they do the right thing.
Yeah.
And keep Case under center.
Yeah. So the next thing that I wanted to get into, because Paulie informed me this last week before the podcast, it wasn't on the air. he said there's another type of fantasy that you're into, and I wanted to get into that a little bit. This is a little bit of nonsense, guys, no football related stuff for the next few minutes, but Jackson is into fantasy NASCAR. So
yes, sir.
I've heard that you're doing fairly well in that as well. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I want to know how you even get graded for points with fantasy NASCAR.
All right, so my backstory is when I'm actually a distant relative to Rick Mears and Casey Mears.
Oh, okay.
Rick Mears is a 4-time Indy 500 champion.
Holy cow.
So racing kind of flows my blood. I actually
shit, man. You never told me that.
Yeah, I'm distant relative.
Oh, my family's a huge, Indy 5 fan. Obviously, they would. That's awesome.
And then with that, I actually did race go-karts.
Oh, nice.
And got into a little. I got tested an open wheel car once, but I raced go-karts for 8 years.
Wow.
And racing's just been, it's one of those passions I have. But in 2014, I started playing fantasy NASCAR on Yahoo.
Yeah.
Just kind of getting a hinge of what I like. And this past year, just we had a good year. Just made
not just
picks.
Good.
No, made good picks, and I actually finished first in the overall rankings on Yahoo.
Oh wow!
So
that's fucking crazy.
Number one in the nation
out of thousands and thousands of people. I was number
crazy.
one. So
it is just thousands and thousands.
I'm
just kidding. I mean,
yeah, but I mean,
it's like 100,000 plus.
Yeah, it's over 100,000.
Yeah,
it might be even more. I mean,
that's pretty
significant.
strong.
But I mean, to see
how many races would that be, and how many lineups are you doing? I mean, is there one every week? And
it's just one every week. I mean, you just pick
for how long? How long's the season?
36 weeks.
Wow.
36 weeks.
36 weeks.
I mean, that's not just a fluke, man.
But I mean,
that's why we were talking about this. That like Justin said, this doesn't have anything to do with fantasy football, but it is a pretty neat accomplishment.
What's cool about the Yahoo NASCAR?
I could give a shit about racing fantasy football, but I still or fantasy racing. I can't even say it. It just doesn't even flow off the tongue. But I'm very impressed by that.
But I mean, it's when you what I'm doing on that site and what I play. It's okay. Like pretend when you draft your fantasy football team.
Yeah.
Okay, you get this lineup and like you got to make it work, or you go to the waiver and you pick these people up. With the fantasy NASCAR, you only get 9 starts per driver the entire year.
Oh wow!
Nothing resets. Nothing like it's.
So it's almost like an eliminator kind of.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, you gotta pick the right drivers. You gotta see what tracks they like. I mean, it was
awesome.
tough. I mean, towards the end of the year, I was saving people to make a good run.
Yeah.
Because we have a trophy at work, and I got just some bragging rights.
That's awesome.
I just love it. But
that's
to
so
finish
crazy
number 1.
too. To finish number 1, that's fucking insane. That's
I got nothing out of it. Like no money. No, I was looking at my Yahoo account, like, hey, let's get like maybe a gift card, maybe like
or did like at least somebody contact you about it.
Nothing. Like I'll be an expert. I would love to be.
An email. Great job, Jackson, for
But
finishing number 1, and this is what you get.
I looked at my profile and it said just champion. I was like, that's it. I get a ribbon. Perfect.
Hey, you still have the title. That's we're not doing this for the money. We're doing this for the bragging rights.
That's awesome though. That is something you should like definitely screenshot it or like save it or something.
Oh, it's on Twitter. It's 100% on Twitter. It got no likes, but I mean,
is it in the cloud then? Is that I'm 44. I don't understand how the cloud works. A lot of us don't. We just kind of pretend.
So
is it in the cloud? Make sure you get it in the cloud. I think is
I don't want people having my stuff.
Yeah, he doesn't want other people to have access to the cloud. So when you're scoring with that, is it just like you picking people in order, or how does it?
Okay, so how they break it down, you get an A, a B, you get 2 B drivers and a C driver.
Okay.
So they kind of rank them. So like if you were to think, like, okay, Martin Truex who just won the championship this year, he was an A driver.
Yeah.
So they kind of break it down in categories. So like the best, middle, and then like some of the people that run like 25 to last place. Yeah. They break that down, and you gotta pick. I mean, it's super cool. But how they do points is you have to make your driver selections by the day they start practicing. And if somebody gets on pole, you get bonus points for that.
Nice.
If somebody leads a lap, you get bonus points for that. And it's all about how, like, I think if you win, you get 90 points.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's a complete breakdown. If you're interested in motorsports and racing, it's so much fun.
Yeah. So right now we have Pauly from Paulys Sleepers, and then we have somebody maybe overshadowing him with the number 1 NASCAR fantasy winner in the Yahoo League. So I feel like I'm surrounded by greatness right now. Thank you guys. So then my team is once again back to my personal fantasy football team, which I'm just kind of using you guys to increase my level of competence here. I have Antonio Brown and Green Bay, or at Green Bay, and Antonio has had a couple down games this year. What do you feel like the outlook is with him against Green Bay?
I mean, if you look at it, the spread, I look at a lot when I do my research. I look at a lot of what the point total is and what the spread is. And for the spread this week, Green Bay versus Pittsburgh, it's 14. Mm-hmm. So if you look at it, who's going to score? It's going to be either Brown or Bell. Mm-hmm. There's no Juju this week. Yeah. It's at home. And if you look at it, Brown always goes off at home.
Yeah.
And then going against a weak secondary, Brown's determined. I mean, if you look at it on the year, Green Bay is averaging 1.21 fantasy points per target. That's fourth worst in the league.
Jeez. That's every time somebody's catching the ball, they're scoring.
Yeah. And if you give him...
that's what he does. Sometimes with his hands, sometimes with his head. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
And you give him 10 receptions. You give him 10 receptions, that's over, I think it's 14 points.
Yeah.
And then you get maybe a touchdown, it's over 20.
Yeah. Jeez.
It's crazy to think that he's got a really, really good chance to hit 10 receptions.
Yeah, and it's a good outlook for him then.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
He kind of I was actually at the Indy Pittsburgh game, and he kind of disappeared in the Indy Pittsburgh game. Was
Melvin has actually been shutting down kind of number one wide receivers. Isn't that Melvin?
Melvin's been doing good, but I mean, I heard a stat this morning, kind of some story, but when it doesn't really matter who the cornerback is unless you're facing like Patrick Peterson, Jalen Ramsey. I mean, when you get a stud corner, Melvin's not really he doesn't pop the eye.
Right.
But when you have a pass rush that's getting to the quarterback, you're gonna make that cornerback better.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's just how I feel. I mean, Brown's gonna eat. So
yeah. He's literally only had, I want to say, 3 games that he didn't have double digits or something like that. It's 1, 2, 3,
right. And
4.
when he gets you 13, you're like, but I mean, still.
But then when he gets almost 40 last week.
And 13 is literally his floor. So, but I mean, I think this week his floor is probably more like 20. Yeah. So ceiling is 60 depending on your scoring system. I've seen him score 60 in our league at work because it's amped up a bunch. So I mean, he's great.
The last thing about, once again, just my personal stuff. What do you think about DeAndre Hopkins at Baltimore? Because I'm playing against somebody with D. Hopkins.
That's tough. I mean, Baltimore has a steady secondary.
Yeah,
Jimmy Smith is their top corner, and he can put some havoc down. But the cool thing is, whether it's Watson or whether it's Savage. I mean, they both know to get the ball in their top guy's hands. I mean, they will force feed him no matter if they're double covered or not. So, I mean, Hopkins has a horrible catch rate. I mean, he'll probably get 14 targets, but he'll catch 7 or 8 balls. But, he doesn't have the best matchup this week, but you don't have to worry about matchups with guys like that. They're pretty much matchup proof. Even when they go against, I mean, when he went against Patrick Peterson,
he still provided a positive line.
Yeah. Didn't he score?
He scored.
I thought he was 85 yards on a score. That's against the top cornerback in the league. So DeAndre Hopkins, you don't ever worry about him.
No. So I'm starting, because the reason I asked this question is I'm starting the Baltimore defense against the Houston Texans, but he does have DeAndre Hopkins, so I'm just kind of...
Oh, that's a great play. I mean, they have been... the Baltimore D has been strong this year.
Yeah.
Very strong, so they could score really big.
So then the last thing that I want to get into for just my personal stuff and the stuff that I wanted to talk about with you guys is my wife tends to have a really good fantasy football team. And I know that people listening to this, if they're playing in our league, they're going to be annoyed, but I'm going to use my ability to try to give her a little bit of help because her team always starts off great. She's in the opposite conference. So I want her in the championship because if no matter what, my last name's still going on that trophy. So yeah, I have her team pulled up. So my thing is her team always starts off great. She's 8-3 this year.
Hand it to me so I could check the waiver.
Yeah, here you go.
Okay. Hand it to me
and so she started off. I want to say she lost 1 game in the beginning of the season, then she's lost 2 in a row. But she's 8-3, and the problem that she's always gone into the playoffs is she doesn't really make changes to her team. So when injuries happen, stuff like that, she might pick somebody off the waiver that's at the top of the list just because she knows that person's projected to do well.
Your buddies are going to be pissed.
Yeah.
I mean, you're asking us to help that really good team get over the hump and get that championship.
Once again, I'm all in it for myself. So so what I want to know is what your guys' thoughts are on any kind of waiver wide receivers or running backs that you guys may like this going into the playoff time.
So list off her team and bench real quick.
So Jen's team is Drew Brees and LaShawn McCoy, this is the person she's starting. Tarek Cohen from Chicago.
Great. He's a sleeper for me this week.
T.Y. Hilton.
Solid.
Super solid.
Ted Ginn Jr., who I told her to pick him up like in that like helpful but like also kind of like a negative way, because she drafted Ted Ginn. I said, go ahead and draft him, like, because I'm thinking, he's not going to be that great, but he's not going to be that good, like terrible, so she's not going to be mad that I told her to the advice. But that's what happens every time I give her advice. The player ends up doing awesome, and then I feel like a dumbass.
But when you try to give advice, you're like, okay, I got this one spot that's available now. Like, heck yeah, like, you're benefiting.
Yeah. So then she's got Zach Ertz, tight end.
Wow,
once again.
Great.
That guy, I said, yeah, go ahead and take him. He hasn't been that great like the previous years. That's fine.
Worked out?
Like, that's going to help her. And then clearly it's just like it's
the tight end pick of the draft. I mean, you probably drafted him as the 3rd or 4th overall tight end.
Yeah, but she's real heavy with the Saints. So she's got Drew Brees, Ted Ginn, Michael Thomas, Seahawks D.
She doesn't need any help, man.
Yeah.
She just
Seahawks D and Chris Boswell. But no, the issue is her bench, which is Jeremy Maclin.
That's great. Jackson loves that guy.
Do you play Jeremy Maclin or Ted Ginn?
I play Maclin over Ginn this week.
Yeah.
I agree. I love Ted Ginn, and you know that. We talked about him earlier this year. I mean, he's like, increased his catch rate this year over his career by 50%.
Yeah.
He still is hot and cold. So is Maclin, but not really lately. He's had 3 very solid games in a row, and they're going against Houston's horrible secondary. He could absolutely blow the fuck up this week. And Ted Ginn could get a touchdown and have 70 yards. I mean, but Maclin has got 150-yard and 2 touchdown upside, and it's amazing. Yeah, get him in there.
Yeah, she's just really been struggling at running back, and then Seattle's D, because Seattle, that just kind of went downhill really quick after the injuries.
They're playing San Fran this week, so they look good.
They look good on paper.
Yeah,
but I mean, when you lose Thomas, or you lose Chancellor. Who's their corner? Sherman.
Yeah.
Frank Clark. I mean, you lose.
The Legion of Boom is the Legion of pew, 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 pew. Yeah. I mean, it's so.
And once Deshaun Watson exposed him, and it went downhill from there.
But it's a great play this week. They're going against the Niners. I mean, last time they played this year, the game was 12-9. No one scored a touchdown.
Yeah. So. And then so basically, off the top of your head, can you guys think of any kind of wide receivers or running backs that you guys have that you're interested in that might be on the waiver more often than not? Because some teams, like I said, some leagues aren't the deepest when it comes to analyzing data and things like that.
I've got a few. Robbie Anderson, who we've already mentioned in lineups today at the Jets.
And hold on one second. So also, guys, if you're listening and you're in this league, you can also use this information. This is not just to help out Jen. So go ahead.
Actually, waivers have cleared. So if these guys are out there, I mean, I doubt he is.
Yeah.
I like McKissick. If you want to get a running back, especially in a PPR league, I mean, the running backs there, none of them have done any good, and he seems to be a better fit and catches 5, 6, 7 balls a game. So if you need a Hail Mary, you need a running back, I would definitely look to pick up that McKissick. And Kenny Stills, if he's out there, I don't know. And then some of the rookies that have getting healthy and second-year guys, the Corey brothers, Corey Coleman at Cleveland, because they're going to have to keep throwing, and he's a beast. 10 targets last week in the comeback.
Oh, wow.
And then Corey Davis for Tennessee, and if Rashard Matthews is out because he's a game time decision.
He's close.
Well, a lot of times Tennessee will let their players play if they want to. They're really old school like that, and they've done that with DeMarco Murray a bunch. So he's questionable with a hamstring game time, and it's kind of his decision, I think. But he might be limited. And Corey Davis just got back from injury and has been getting targeted heavily. He's a special talent. Tiptoe sideline catches, and he has like a 4.26 speed.
Wow!
So those Corey Davis and Corey Coleman, I would definitely look to pick up. Tyler Kroft at tight end, if you need one. I mean, it's been a tough year for tight ends. Charles Clay could definitely become relevant. Somebody's probably dropped Charles Clay. He was hurt, but he was balling out. He was original Paulys Sleeper from week 1 this year and was just balling out and got hurt, and he's coming back and emerging. So if he's out there, pick up Charles Clay.
Yeah, my Jen. I can't believe this. She got Zach Ertz, and then she also picked up Connor Brate right at the perfect time. And Connor Brate had a couple of really good games, and that's when
Cameron Brate.
That's
He's
right.
had 2 stinkers though.
Yeah,
I mean, he needs Winston back.
Yeah, but that's when she picked him up when he was playing well.
But in the beginning of the year, he was. I mean, I have him on my team, and he was completely killing it for me. But then
I told Josh to pick him up in our league, and he did, and he was balling out. He was like, "Dude, Paulie, that's the best advice you've ever given." But the last 2 weeks, he's gone to no man's land, so it's a good thing she's got Ertz.
Exactly. But yeah, so that league, I think, firmly in position to make the playoffs. So if I haven't talked about this league on the podcast that much before, I started the league. The very first year I won the league. Every year since then, I've finished in the bottom half at least. So it's really good. It feels good to be back on the winning side of things. So I'm hoping that it just continues. And what I've noticed is recently having a lot of players on the same team has actually benefited me. For example, the Lions. I have Stafford, I have Golden Tate, and then their kicker as well. Mm-hmm. And I came back from being down 50 points because of those 3 players. That's
it can be great. It's feast or famine, though, as you found out this week. I mean, if they do sputter and have an off game, which anybody can, that hurts. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, look at the high-powered offenses, and people are stacked with Rams and Saints.
Yep.
And I mean, didn't you say you had Kamara and Ingram at one point?
I did, and I should have kept them.
Never
or at
in
least,
the history,
but you never know. I mean, you really do never know.
In the history of fantasy football has there been 2 running backs on the same team this relevant
and sustained that well.
Since Adrian Peterson has left, they are the number 1 and number 2 running backs in PPR. Number 1 and number 2. So we try to play them together in fantasy a bunch. And if you guys stay tuned till the end, I actually have a lineup that has both of them in it this week.
I had them both, and it was when I drafted Ingram in the draft, and then I picked up Kamara later on because Ingram had a couple of slower games. So I was like, I'll just pick up Kamara because in case Ingram gets hurt. Then I needed a roster spot, so I dropped Kamara. When if I was smart and kept both of them, I could have played them both every week and been even better than I've been. So it's one of those things that hindsight's always 20/20. So.
That's for sure. But I mean, once they traded Peterson, which I mean that was a positive move from the beginning. They should have never signed him.
Yeah.
But I mean the impact that these two have had in this offense. I mean, you still have a Hall of Fame quarterback in Breeze, and he's barely doing anything.
They're doing what they want to do in 2009 when they won it. Yeah. They had an amazing running game, and that was one of Breeze's, down years statistically too. But he doesn't care if he's throwing for 404 or 202.
Yeah, as long as they're winning.
And he still will get it done. I mean, he's not a bad fantasy quarterback this year. But yeah, if you have him with Michael Thomas and one of those running backs, and that's just a smash offense.
Yeah. So the last thing that I wanted to get into was the rest of your lineups, and then also anything else that you guys might have that you want to say before the games start to give some people some last minute advice. Maybe keep them on the line a little bit so that they'll stay and finish the podcast out.
I was going to get into, the thought process this week. And we talked last week about, I just thought, well, going forward, I'm just going to start, giving out the lineups more and just getting, basic on that and not getting into my thought process and the research because people don't want to hear all that shit. And the feedback that I got was, yes, we do.
Yeah,
Paul.
People like to hear that because
we want to hear why you like certain players. We want to know why you've derived at that, and you keep it interesting. And that's why I've started to do this. That's why I decided to do this a long time ago because some of it is so boring. And that's why I thought people didn't want to hear that, but they do. This is what we talked about it earlier, weather, and going forward, it's going to be more and more of a factor. So you could completely fade games if there's that wind. We look at implied point totals in Vegas, and Jackson talked about that earlier, the high-scoring games. This week, the implied total big games are Tennessee and the Colts, New England, Miami, although that's the wind game, so that's the one that I'm fading, which is great. I hope everybody loads up on them, and the wind is a huge factor like it was in KC Giants a couple weeks ago. And then looking at the spreads and the running backs we're playing are we tend to pay for running backs that are at home with implied big point favorites because if if that goes according to plan, they're icing out the game at the end of the game. We're looking at target and market share and increases in market share, and guys that are primed to get the ball more. And that's, a lot of the guys that I started talking about at the beginning of the year are emerging and have been emerging. So, you just follow the trends. And then injuries, obviously. And then a couple injuries I wanted to get into this week, which is making a big impact on our decisions, is Devontae Freeman is out for the Falcons, which means it's the Tevin Coleman show. So Coleman, IU Hoosier. He last week we played him and he was really cheap, and I said, it's not the best matchup at Seattle, obviously, but he's going to get so much of the ball, and he got 12 points. So DK points at home this week. Now they're making you pay for him, but that's fine for me. He's $6,500 on DK. He's not super high price. He's definitely not sleeper price, but he's going to get 70% of that market share. So I like Coleman with Freeman out. Now, we're going to do a lot of Tariq Cohen because one of my theories, and we'll talk about it more moving forward, is just the fantasy community and all the guys that put out all the stuff. That's why I do my first take before a lot of it gets out, and all these, the roto grinders and the Pro Football Focus guys and all those guys get out there and the Swolecast and start giving their takes. And there's one thing I'm starting to realize. It's a conspiracy theory, which I thought you would like.
I do love
because I've heard your conspiracy theory show. So we're going to work on this, and I don't have a ton of empirical data yet, but I talked to somebody who knows somebody who hit really big 2 weeks ago. And when I heard the name, I'm not going to give the name out, but he's on a lot of the podcasts and videos. Yeah. But he hit big, and they do. I mean, that's why they're experts in daily fantasy. I haven't hit big like that. I'm betting, $1 to $5, sometimes $20, and I've hit for 800, and that's why I'm still doing it. But the big hit is coming. But his lineup consisted of several guys that he wasn't talking about on his shit. I heard him a couple times that week.
So he's trying to not give out the best.
So there was an
lineups.
Email sent to this guy and was like, "Hey man, I'm a big fan. I heard about your win. Just curious. Blah 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 and blah blah blah. You didn't say anything about them this week. What's up with that?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, ha. Yeah, hit a good one this week. Got lucky. I do a lot of lineups, and that one consisted of a few guys that were out there, and they all happened to hit. Bullshit. Yeah. These are guys that these industry insiders are keeping from you. Yeah. And the guy this week that everybody's talking about that's going to hit is McKissick. And remember, we were burned by Rex Burkhead last week. Everybody played him. He was super cheap on DraftKings. He crapped out. He fumbled early. There's 14 running backs on that team. So if you fumble at the beginning of the game, you're not going to see that much more playing time. And so he crapped out. It didn't hurt you because he was cheap. And a lot of people played him. So that meant he didn't hurt you. Because you're also looking at the amount that these guys are being played, their percentage of starts. And in GPPs, if somebody's getting started 30% of the people to 50% of the people are playing them, then, that makes that kind of a free space if that person goes off. You have to have them. But I think this week, everyone's talking about J.D. McKissick, so I like Tariq Cohen. Yeah. For Philly on the road against, or for Chicago on the road against Philly. Came out of the gate this year smashing, got 12 targets in the passing game week 1, and that happened once last year, the entire year. Yeah. Someone got 12 targets once, and this year it happened in the first week, and then they stopped playing him. Yeah. Well, I think they're getting him ready to unleash, and Jordan Howard has been hot and cold, and the Eagles' D is the number 1 D. So on the road, I don't think Jordan Howard will get it done. They're going to get behind in that game, so that's going to be a lot of Tariq Cohen. I think Tariq Cohen is the guy that those industry insiders are not telling you about because he's $100 more than J.D. McKissick. Schmootzums. Schmootzes. McKissick. It doesn't even sound like a player you want to play, does it? McKissick? No. Last time they played, Seattle and the 49ers, McKissick, if you don't know who he is going to be featured for Seattle this week because their running backs suck. Yeah. And he actually is a good fit for that offense, and I like for him to probably get 8 to 12 points, which will return value. But Cohen will be that guy that just gets 28 out of nowhere. Yeah.
But to kind of roll off your point on pivoting from McKissick to Cohen, I kind of did some research, and in the past 3 games, the Seahawks have only ran the ball with a running back 53 times. That is 17
in 3 games, right?
3 games.
Wow. Russell Wilson is throwing the ball 71% of the time during that span. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then I've always told you this, is I go a lot based on like gut feeling. I don't really have a lot of the time to, or I do have time, but I choose to work on this stuff. But with the stats and everything, like I said, I don't do a lot of research. But when I watched Cohen is the one that passes the eye test. When you're watching a guy and he just looks like a football player and he looks like a stud, that's what, like when I saw him like diving into the end zone and getting flipped into the end zone or something like that.
But he's like a Darren Sproles type.
Yeah.
Like he pops the eye. And it's
athletic.
Yes.
I was like, that guy is somebody you should probably be looking at to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So building our lineups this week, too, another guy that a lot of people are going to be playing because a lot of the insiders are talking about him is Russell Wilson. And I know he sounds like a great play, and yeah, he probably is. But he's on the road at San Fran, and those guys play each other tight. And Seattle tends to play to their opponent this year. The last time they played, like I said, the game score was 12-9, but they've had games in the 30s and 40s, but every time their opponent is within 3 or 5 points. So I think it'll be a low-scoring division game. He's going to run the ball a lot, so he's going to score, but I think he's a free space. I think I've got guys that have the same upside as his scoring, and yeah, he'll probably hit 30 points, but I think these other guys that I'm playing are just as likely to get 30 points, and they're cheaper. So I'm going to let everybody play Russell Wilson this week. And the reason why we like Goff is because Marshawn Lattimore, who we've talked about, who's the best-rated cornerback in the country right now, and it's his rookie year. He's having the best rookie year at the position since Champ Bailey.
Yeah.
He's out. His counterpart on the other side, the number 2 cornerback, is out.
Oh, wow.
And then they have a defensive Okafor.
Okafor, yeah.
Yeah, Okafor is out. So, New Orleans defense has been smashing lately. The first couple weeks they didn't do well at all, but they've had their shit together. But they're on the road and they're missing key elements. So Goff has been great on the road, and Goff is the most common denominator among millionaire lineups this year than any other player.
Oh, wow.
So on the millionaire hits every week, more often than not, Goff is in that lineup. And we've played a lot of him this year too, and he's 6,700, and Wilson is 7,000. So I like Goff at home just as much, and he'll run the ball too. He probably won't run the ball as much as Russ because lately Russ is just taking off. Yeah. If it's not there, he goes.
Yeah.
So I mean, definitely, I'm not saying Russ is a bad play this week. Just fantasy, we're kind of thinking. Contrarian. So, Jackson, do you want to talk about contrarian a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, contrarian, you could kind of look at, one person I'm looking at, contrarian-wise, is Corey Coleman.
Yeah.
You look at his stats.
From the Browns.
From the Browns, yeah. He's only played 14 games in his career. He's a second-year player. But he's never healthy. And when he comes back, he gets double-digit targets instantly.
Yeah.
He broke his hand 2 years in a row. I mean, what are the odds of that? Yeah. Broke his hand 2 years in a row. That's
better than Darren Sproles breaking he broke his hip, arm, and all in one
play.
His leg
and his knee.
That's insane.
Yeah. He did have like 3 major injuries on that play. I mean, R.I.P. Darren Sproles is just fantastic. I mean, respect. Because, huge PPR machine and a great guy. But some of these other guys are the next Darren Sproles. I think they're out there. The next Darren Sproles are out there right now. And Kamara, AK-41, is one of them because, he's everybody thinks he's small, but he's like 215 pounds.
Yeah, he's not small.
And like 6 feet tall.
Yeah. And the sad part is we have a Darren Sproles-like player here in Indy. He just does not see the field.
Hashtag Marlon Mack.
Yes, like it's
the Mack attack is coming if we get someone that can coach football. I mean, we all know how to coach this team better than Chuck Pagano.
It's so sad. Like,
God, he's horrible.
It was that San Fran game, I think, and he came in and he just electrified the entire team. And then all of a sudden, Gore goes out the next game and gets 18 touches. And it's like, the dude gets 2.
It's what
he doesn't know when to call timeouts.
It's what we talked about.
And usually he's calling a timeout in favor of the other team. Yeah. He's done it like 3 times in the past 3 years.
And it's what we talked about before going into the game that I went to see, the Steelers and Colts game. I talked about it on the podcast before the game. Pagano doesn't make halftime adjustments. No. Like, they continue the same plan, and that's why they lose. And one of the reasons why they lose, because Pittsburgh, we went into half and we were up and we were winning that game. And then
you were containing Pittsburgh. Yeah. That was the thing. Like, you just go. Then
Pittsburgh
sad.
changed their offense up, and then he couldn't make any adjustments to respond to that. It's sad. We'll get somebody else better in there eventually.
But more reason for me to like Coleman. Last week they played Jacksonville, and for when we talked about, Jacksonville is honestly the best. It's the best defense in the league right now, and he saw 11 targets and caught 6. And that's versus
solid.
And you're going to get up against Cincinnati. They're not bad, but it's not Jacksonville.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if you're going to be behind, I think they're going to be trailing, honestly. Coleman's going to go off. I really do believe that. And for the 4,300, it's not a bad price.
Oh, it's great. We're looking at the, speaking of the Browns, let's talk a lot about the Browns. I do like their defense this week for 2,500.
That's sad.
Super contrarian play, though. I mean, it's just so crazy it might work.
And if it does work, then you're a genius.
I expect a low-scoring game, and they've told Myles Garrett to feast. The defensive staff said, go get him.
Mm-hmm.
They have a shutdown, almost, pretty close to shutdown corner.
McCourty's good.
And McCourty, who'll be on A.J. Green. Yeah. Something interesting that happened last week with Isaiah Crowell, and you were talking about him earlier in the year. He's on a contract year, and you were talking about contract years. So this is one of the reasons why I'm talking about this, because it ties into what you've talked about.
Perfect.
Justin.
Callback.
Yeah, fall back to that. Last week they played the Jags, and the safety for the Jags played in Cleveland last week and was very vocal throughout the week about how his disdain for them and their organization.
Tayshaun Gibson.
Tayshaun Gibson.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, very good. So after the game, after a loss, Crowell exchanged jerseys publicly with this guy.
Uh-oh.
Exchanged their jerseys. So coach speak is something I listen to, and there's times when you just want to tune it out, because they'll talk about a guy that isn't getting the ball, and we'll say we're going to get so and so more looks this week, and then they don't play him, and you play him in your fantasy league, and you're like, hey coach, what happened? So that's coach speak. But when Isaiah Crowell pulls a jump the shark move like this, and there's somebody like Duke Johnson that fits way better in that offense, and Duke Johnson week 1 on Paulys Sleepers, I said, this is going to be a guy we're going to play later. He fits this offense really, really well. They didn't address really the Crowell situation per se amongst the coaching staff, but the head coach said, we need to get Duke Johnson the ball more in between the tackles. Rushes. Last week he had 7, which is high for him.
Yeah.
If we start seeing 10+ rushes and still catches the ball 5, 6, 7, 8 times a game, he lights up in the slot as a wide receiver. That's also something they talked about doing with him in training camp. It's getting them a while to get that going. And when they've got Coleman coming back, and then they've got Josh Gordon coming back.
Yeah, next week.
No way.
Next week.
I thought he was done with football. I think we've already talked about this, but I could have sworn he was done with football.
But, we can breaking news right now. He'll be high next week when they play the game.
That's probably... if we're going with the track record, that's probably fairly accurate.
He did admit to getting fucked up before every game, either versus either chiefing up some spliff or being drunk.
Yeah.
But Duke Johnson, then the running backs coach said... we need to get our best playmaker on the field this week and get him out there more. So he's $4,600 on DraftKings this week. We really, really like him, and that's why we're staying in the flames with Hunt and Julio, because I just feel like they're played so much that when they have 10-13, which is a bad game for them, but when you're looking at DraftKings, just like on your fantasy team, if everyone hits for double digits, it's looking like a good week.
Yeah.
You don't want to pay up for those guys and then have them hit for 10 for 13.
Yeah.
But when you do, it's because they're in smash spots, and most of the people are playing them, so it's another free spot.
Yeah.
So you have to play them this week. Hunt is going against the worst Buffalo run D at home, favorite in that game. Julio is going up against the worst secondary in Tampa Bay at home, and he averages 26 DraftKings points versus Tampa Bay in his career.
And to even add more fuel to this fire, I did some research last night. In 5 career games versus Tampa Bay at home in Atlanta, Julio's gone for 32 receptions, 521 yards, and 6 scores.
Wow.
Okay.
So,
there you have it, guys.
Good spot for Julio.
Even with Julio, I looked at more with how I do with the wide receiver cornerback matchup. He goes up against Robert McClain. Julio is a freak specimen.
Yeah.
6'3", 220. This guy he's going up against is 5'9", 195. I'm sorry, but that's a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can just throw it up there. Lance on Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah. Just saying.
You can just toss it up to him. He's going to catch it.
We like to focus on 2 defenses, or maybe 3 at the most every week. Last week we did Eagles and Chargers, and they both smashed. And on Thanksgiving we did some cash lineups featuring 100% Chargers, and they smashed. So this week, guess who one of the defenses is? It's the Eagles at home versus the Bears. Possibly windy game too.
Yeah.
You're going to throw wind in the mix with Trubisky. He's already likely to score or to throw up 3 or 4 picks. So Eagles will feast, and then Falcons, if they get up like we think they're going to, that pass rush is fierce, and Fitzmagic will be blindsided. I guarantee you he gets hit in the back this week and has no idea it's coming.
And I mean, plus if more reason to play Atlanta, you got Fitzpatrick. I mean, last year he threw 6 interceptions in one game.
Oh, wow.
And if Tampa Bay's down, this dude's going to throw, and then he might throw some errant throws.
Jesus.
Yeah, we talk about like 3 touchdown upside, 4 touchdown upside. He has 6 interceptions.
But also Atlanta does
downside.
have 11 sacks in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
All right.
So a couple more injuries really quick. Tampa Bay's 4th graded Pro Football Focus run-stopping defensive end is out, which increases Tevin Coleman's value even more. Miami's number 1 graded run-stopping defensive end, and granted, the defensive tackle are the guys who are paid to stop the run, but there's some defensive ends in this league that do really well with it too, and these guys are 2 of the top 5. They're both out this week, and Miami, they're going against New England at home.
Yeah.
And with my bubble wrap theory, Lewis is in a great places.
Position
We're
to
not going to
score.
get cute and pick Burkhead or White this week.
Yeah.
We're gonna go with Lewis, and it will be Burkhead or White, because that will kill you. Jarvis Landry has the best wide receiver cornerback matchup this week at 85% on Pro Football Focus.
Wow.
And Julio Jones is 50%. So, I mean, Julio's in a smash spot if he's in the 20 to 30% range, but he's 50%. And Hargreaves is Tampa Bay's cornerback that's out this week, too.
Yeah.
So their second best cornerback is out, which means there's not going to be much help there. So T.Y. Hilton is in a smash spot at home against a susceptible Tennessee D. Now, granted, they are better in the league amongst not allowing 20-yard plus plays, which T.Y. is good at, but I think they can bring him in and get him more involved in the short game, and he'll have the PPR value. And I think he's a good play at home. I think you have to play T.Y. at home. A couple weeks ago, we said T.Y., and he was the top fantasy player that week. He's 6,700 this week. Also, Jack Doyle at 4,500. I mean, he's just a target monster. He does sometimes have baby hands.
Yeah.
But there's a connection there. If you want to get into the lineups, we'll give out a few more here.
So, quick thing: if you were to choose between Doyle and Hilton, who are you going with?
Absolutely, T.Y. Hilton.
See, I disagree with that. I really do. I mean, if you look at Hilton, I mean, he's a 20-yard play kind of guy. I mean, that's his game. But with Doyle, I
did bring up a point to not play the player that I said to play, didn't I?
Yeah. But I mean, with Hilton, I mean, Tennessee, like to kind of aforemention your point, Tennessee has given up the least amount of 20-yard plays.
Yeah.
What does T.Y. Hilton feast on? But they are allowing the
so
third
Doyle
most
could
receptions.
Get 8-9 catches for 90, 100 yards.
And if this game
definitely
shoots out like we're expecting, I mean, the total is, I think the total is 45.5.
I think it'll go over that, and I think they'll both feast, actually. Yeah.
That's crazy. So the one thing that I wanted to bring up too is last week we did questions that people called in and asked us, fantasy questions. If this is something that we're going to continue to do, I do want you guys to definitely send those in. You can send them into the email at juiceinthemorning@gmail.com. And then the phone number to call is 317-762-5823. That's my Google Voice account so that I can not give out my personal phone number. It still goes to my phone, but at least I know when it's going to that number. I can ignore it and it'll go right to voicemail. That way you guys can leave a question. And, I appreciate you guys coming on and doing it. I mean, we're getting right to an hour, so I want you to give out your last couple of lineups and then we'll get out of here.
We'll do. Shout out to Chad Snipes, original Paulys Sleeper clan. He's been playing along and has been doing really well, and I wanted to give him some props this week. We'll get into this here. We'll do one with Matt Ryan at home. Let's play him with Tevin Coleman, Christian McCaffrey. He's another guy that the experts aren't talking about this week, and he's getting a ton of looks. And he's actually like 4th in the league in red zone targets for a running back. That's crazy. So Ryan, Tevin Coleman, Christian McCaffrey, Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Robbie Anderson, George Kittle, Larry Fitzgerald, and the Falcons D. And then we'll do a couple more of the Goff ones because we really like Goff. Goff, Duke Johnson, Todd Gurley, Alshon Jeffries, Cooper Kupp, Michael Thomas, Cook, the tight end in Oakland, Corey Coleman, and the Browns. Then we'll do Goff, Kareem Hunt, Alvin Kamara, Mohamed Sanu, Cooper Kupp, Sammy Watkins, so both the wide receivers there, Tyler Kroft, and then we'll do Dion Lewis and the Pats D. And then Goff with Cohen, AK-41, Alvin Kamara, Kenny Stills, Cooper Kupp, Julio Jones, Jack Doyle, Zach Ertz, and the Falcons D. And then a couple Hail Mary plays, what the hex. We're going to do Paxton Lynch for Denver. And the reason why is because the running backs are Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara.
Okay.
How you like it.
I'm down.
Yeah, and then let's do, how about Brandon Cooks in there too?
Cooks is like one of my favorite plays of the week.
So can we get Cooks in there? Let's do Paxton Lynch with both the New Orleans running backs and Brandon Cooks, Robbie Anderson, Emmanuel Sanders, Cook, Jared Cook, Devontae Booker, and the Falcons D. And then the other Hail Mary is Matt Moore with Tevin Coleman, Christian McCaffrey, Jarvis Landry, Kenny Stills, and Brandon Cooks, Tyler Kroft, Alshon Jeffrey, and the Falcons D. Good luck, guys.
I like it.
Thank you guys. Thanks Jackson. Thanks Pauly for coming on and doing the show. I appreciate you guys doing it. It's I think something that we're going to continue doing. So we'll look forward to that, and maybe we'll do something next month before the playoffs or something like that. Because today I have 3 podcasts scheduled for today. So I'm doing this one. Look for the podcast on Monday that we're going to be doing after this with Shane. We're actually going to have an Arena Football League player in the studio, and we're going to be talking to him about some conspiracy stuff as well as some of his stuff that he does with football. So it's going to be awesome. And
that's cool.
Like I said, we're going to talk some flat earth. I can't tell through the conversation with him if he's a supporter of that movement or not. So we'll be finding out on Monday. And then I think I'm going to be on the Smugcast podcast as well, which is the guys out of Greenwood. So it's a busy day, but look for those podcasts tomorrow. And then, good luck with your NFL fantasy today. Do what?
Oh.
All right. And we're going to go out to some NFL Films music. I'm going to edit that.
I just wanted to